if you want something, put it out there.
Yeah.
Talk, even if it's just starting a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
If you want it, you just never know where that conversation might lead.
My dream is to improve the residential building industry for all involved. Throughout this podcast, we're going to be chatting to all types of industry experts to make sure that builders, tradies and clients all have a fantastic experience. G'day everyone, back here in the shed for another episode of Level Up. Pretty exciting one today. We've got a pretty cool young fella here that got in touch with us. We follow each other on social media. So Chris, for those of you that don't know Chris, he's on Instagram as Chrissy T, the Chippy. T is in T-double-E.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here, mate. So thanks.
Look, there is a little bit of noise today, so we're battling with Mother Nature. It's been absolutely pissing down in storms all afternoon, and we're sitting in the shed here trying to fit it in between the breaks and the rain. So, Chris, tell us, like, I'm stoked that you reached out to come on because for a few reasons. Like, you're just about to complete a mature age apprenticeship, which I think's like so much courage, and I take my hat off you for doing that because like we've been having a bit of talk between the rain here, and like Chris said, sometimes you got to go backwards to go forward. But just to get started, can you tell us a little bit about like what did you do when you finished school? How did you start your career?
Yeah, so back a little while now. I started my working life back in 05 or 04. Left school halfway through year 10. Wasn't quite for me.
Yeah.
My mum was pretty supportive. But said at the same time, if you want to leave school,
get a job.
You got to go get a job and pay your way. So had a few little shitty jobs and cleaning portables, the old site portables and a few things.
Jeez, and then you really didn't like school, mate.
And then actually started a cabinet making apprenticeship because I was so young and it was hard to do anything else.
Yeah. So
you had that factory side of things, you had that point, but even that sort of wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So
how do you, like, what do you mean when you say that wasn't for you? Like,
I just stuck in a factory and that was just in that one spot.
Yeah.
I liked building the cabinets and seeing a kitchen get built, but I suppose being 16, full of energy, stuck in a factory.
Yeah, you wanted to get out amongst it.
Yeah, it wasn't quite for me. So eventually, I went and moved back to my roots and went back to country Victoria in Shepparton, where my family's from, and lived with my uncle, who's a carpenter. He mainly built sheds and big factories and whatnot. Yeah. And did a little bit with him, and actually got into sports academy, Aboriginal Sports Academy back in Shepparton.
Yeah, when you were talking to me about this, I was a bit taken back. I was like, well, like you've always been a tradie, and then you are really into your sport, aren't you? Like you're just telling me you've just sort of semi-retired from football, AFL.
Yeah.
How did you go from being in a tradie to getting a sports academy job?
It was probably one of those things where I was sort of a bit lost, really. 16, 17, I was out of home, living with my uncle. He's just had his third baby at the time. And then having a 17-year-old with him.
Yeah. Must be a good uncle.
Yeah, no. I owe him a lot, actually. And there was this academy that just started, which was a part of the University of Melbourne, and a local Aboriginal football club. And they were their original thing was to try and get Indigenous kids to university, trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
I went there to studied some sports certificates, and then in the process, they offered me a job at the end of it.
Yeah, awesome.
So, ended up being there for study plus work was over 7 years.
And so what was the point where you sort of realised you'd had enough of that and you wanted to get back into the trade?
Yeah, well, once again, on holidays and whatnot, I was always back with my uncle doing renos with him, and I just loved picking up tools and building things and working, and being a carpenter was always there. Yeah. And then I moved to Queensland with my partner in end of 2013. Left Boxing Day. And been here ever since. And
So did you have kids then when you moved? Or?
Nah. So it was just me and my partner at the time.
Yeah.
With her little car, little Hyundai Getz, 17-hour drive, and a truck full of furniture that we got off family.
Yeah.
Moved up and partly, to play football for Labrador. And then, we've been at a footy club, 90% of blokes are tradies, so that was sort of one way that I just got my foot into working and stuff like that, and got onto a guy that does cladding.
Yeah.
Got onto him, he was a ripping lad, worked with him for 6 years, and I got to 30 and thought, I've always wanted to be a chippy, sorry.
So were you subbing to a company that was only installing what sort of cladding were you doing?
Yeah, so I was just just subbing out to him as a labourer, installing EPS polystyrene cladding.
Yeah.
And then we sort of ventured a little bit into that Loxo panel cladding.
Yeah.
And then worked with him. He was awesome to work for.
Yeah.
And then like I said, I got to 30. And just this being a carpenter was in the back of my head ever since I was young. And I thought, I need to get this ticket. It got to the point I had a chat with him and he said, mate, whatever you need, let's do it. So made a few phone calls, got onto a bloke, signed me up. And
so was it getting to a point where you're like, shit, if I don't make the call now to do something, like I'm just going to continue on this path? Or like what was a real turning point, I guess? Like, was it financial, or was it because you didn't want to be stuck doing what you're doing forever, or you just knew you wanted to be a chippy? Yeah,
there's a few things. Definitely one was that part of me just always wanted to be a carpenter.
Yeah.
I just love building things, seeing things get built. And at the time I had a 3-year-old son.
Yeah.
And I thought I didn't want to get to 40 and still be a labourer.
Yeah. I take my hat off to you, mate. Like that, it takes courage, and to anybody that's doing a mature age apprenticeship, because financially it is a step backwards, and a lot of people, they probably work their way up to a certain point, and now they've got to go back to being a first year, and been learning and taught what to do. But it takes courage to do that.
It was definitely a learning curve, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You're 30, 32, thinking I had life somewhat sorted.
Yeah.
And then, you sort of get, taken down a notch or two in, retrospect. You got to realise where you're at and quickly realise you got a lot to learn. So, it's been fun, to be honest.
So tell us, you told me a bit of a story about how you got on with the guy that you're on. So it was all during the start of COVID, wasn't it, that you...
Yeah.
So what's that, 2019?
So, I was originally with a guy for the first 9 years, and he just sort of just slowed up and sort of just
first
wanted...
9 months?
Yeah, 9 months, sorry.
It's a long apprenticeship.
First 9 months, sorry. So I did that, and he sort of wanted to slow up.
Yeah.
Sort of wasn't taking too many jobs on, and saw the writing was on the wall, and it was unfortunately perfect timing that he had to make the phone call and let me go, because we had nothing coming up, and it was a month before COVID hit Australia.
Yeah, right.
So at the time I thought, and then within 2 weeks I was making a lot of phone calls, and a lot of blokes, probably a lot that listen here, didn't know what to do, probably letting guys go.
Yeah.
It was early to mid 2019.
Yeah.
And it was pretty scary at some points.
So you put yourself out there, Bart. Like you jumped on social media. You were looking up builders. You were messaging people. You were really putting yourself out there to make it happen. And it's what happened? You ended up finding a builder that was just around the corner.
Yeah. So I messaged. Like you said, I messaged over 150 builders on Instagram and Facebook and phone calls. And one of them was I was seeing a trailer drive past my home out at Coomera. Thought I'll give these guys a crack. Looked them up, found them on social media, and it happened to be a mate. He was building a client's house up the road. So he said, at the time, he didn't have much on. And, 2 months later, give me a call back, and he's like, mate, give us a couple of weeks and we'll put you on a bit of a trial. And, the rest is history.
Well, that blows my mind. So you've messaged 150 builders to get a job.
Yeah.
How many of them got back to you?
Well, a fair few did. But being early COVID, it was sort of, I was pretty understanding. They were all sort of, just not at the moment sort of thing. So that.
And so obviously there was a drive behind that. Like you got a young family, just moved to the Gold Coast. Like you needed to get cash. Like I think that says a lot about your personality. And ultimately, for anything to happen in life, you've got to put yourself out there, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was sort of why I started it. My work Instagram, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Was just for myself to look back on. In 2 or 3 years, you scroll back and you're going, that's what I did.
Yeah.
How cool is that? And it's sort of grown a little bit from that. There's a bit of a community out there of tradies.
Yeah, it's got a bit shorter too, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has actually. Had a bit of a trim. Summer on the Gold Coast. It's a bit hot.
But look, you're obviously comfortable doing it because you actually wouldn't be sitting here now. We wouldn't be having this conversation because that's sort of what you did with me. Yeah.
No, I think, you were definitely one of the builders I contacted. And like I said, it was understandable. It was mid-2019. It was a bit hard. There was a lot of blokes getting put off, let alone getting put on.
Well, I actually think you did message me about that, and I actually think you sent me a message saying I will drive to Brisbane. If you put me on, I will drive to Brisbane. And look, we're in that same situation. We didn't know what was happening, what was coming up, but. Look, the fact that and then you've done it again. Like you put yourself out there, and I think you messaged me, and I said, "Mate, do you want to get on the podcast? Let's do it." And I think you were back within 5 minutes, and we've hooked it up. So, good on you, mate, for putting yourself out there. And I think that's a good message for everyone. Like if you don't put something out there to the universe, nothing's going to happen. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. If you want something, put it out there. Yeah. Talk, even if it's just starting a conversation with someone. Yeah. If you want it, you just never know where that conversation might lead.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome story. Like to have the courage to do that and follow through, and obviously you've turned around because you're only a month or a couple of months away now from finishing your time. Yeah. So we've touched on it a little bit before we started recording, but. Yeah, so one thing I'm not liking really about our industry now is the trades are all broken up. Like a carpenter does a fit-out apprenticeship or a cladding apprenticeship and all that sort of thing. So, like you've been pretty lucky. You actually got on with a builder that you've learned everything.
Yeah, I was pretty selective with who I sort of actually wanted to work for. Actually, in that time in 2019, I actually turned a few jobs away because I knew they were just framing carpenters.
And so do you think it's important for, like especially younger guys out there to think about getting into the industry to do a bit of homework and figure out what builders do? Because I imagine there's probably a few guys out there that sign up for an apprenticeship and then 2 years in think, holy shit, all I've done is framing for 2 years. Like, am I going to learn anything else?
Yeah, it's pretty sad. You hear about it probably way too often.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That, like I said, that's why I was so selective of who I work for. And probably one thing, I actually did want to do my apprenticeship with an actual builder. Yeah. Compared to just a carpentry crew who is subbed out. Because you just learn pretty much everything from start to finish. Because the other day, like I was saying, like on a Saturday, I spent 3 hours building a balustrade from scratch out of timber, and the other day I was putting in steel K-braces. So going from one extreme to another. And
but like I look personally, I think carpenters are the it appeals to me because you're there for the entire job. You get to see what you've started with and what you finish with. But I think probably the best thing that comes out of working with a builder that does everything is you get to know a little bit about every trade, which
Yeah.
sets you up really well to move on to become a builder one day, if you choose to go that way. But it also helps out with, like, when situations come up on site, a lot of the time you will know what to do to set up something for the sparky or the plumber or concrete or whatever it may be, but you sort of get a good general knowledge of everything.
Yeah, no, exactly. You pretty much hit the nail on the head there. Like, you're right across nearly every trade, if not every trade.
Yeah.
Even, today, like, had to do a few things with the roofer because they were there. There was a few things.
With all the rain, fixed a few leaks.
With some box gutters, they just had to tweak a few things. So, that aspect, I had the Sparkies were on site and asked a couple of questions about a few things. So, that's what I love about it as well. You're just across the whole build from start to finish. It's very rewarding.
Tell us a little bit about the work that you do, like, with your current boss. Like, what is it? New homes, renos, high end, mid, like what?
Yeah, so bit of mixture. At the start last year we did three pretty decent sized renos.
Yeah.
And this year we've got a few new homes, a couple of villas on the go at the moment. And then we've got a big renovation coming up as well, and a few more. So pretty much everything.
So with the in the time that you've been doing it, what's your favourite? Like new homes, renovations. Like what do you think appeals to you more? And if you were to move towards being a builder, what do you think you'd aim at?
Definitely renovations appeal to me a lot. I just love seeing that old to new, making something old look nice.
Yeah. Blending it in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Figuring there's a lot more to figure out on a renovation.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I like that problem solving aspect of being a carpenter.
Yeah.
How to do certain things, like it might be something to do with engineering.
Yeah.
Trying to fix, it might be beams in ceilings, or how to load bearing walls, and if you're going to knock one out, how do you fix the situation and stuff like that. And back onto that old to new, like I just love, we were talking about it earlier in Melbourne especially. I see a lot of it with a front cottage
houses.
and I just love the fact that you can walk in, still keep that 1920s look, 1930s look, and end up with a modern back facade, like something like that. I'd love to get into that.
Yeah, no, they're beautiful, some of those homes, and it's a lot of them you can't tell. Like the front's all character, and you get out the back, and there's these beautiful modern, works of art, really. Like, but you also touched on me earlier. You did like the design side of it as well. So, like, do you think that is something that you might do some higher learning on, or is it something you want to get more involved in? Or
yeah, definitely. I quite haven't looked into it just yet, but it's definitely in the back of my mind that the design aspect of a house, that very early stage of talking to clients and what they want. And
I think it's incredibly important. I actually think design should be part of your apprenticeship. Like a carpenter should be, and especially getting your builder's license. Like design, I've learnt so much. Like we do that pack process in our business, and we're involved with the design. And like for the years that I've been doing that, it has made me such a better builder, because I understand why the designer or the architect has put a room where he has, or a hallway where he has, or a window where they have, and it actually makes it a lot easier to make decisions or problem solve, especially on a renovation. And whereas in the past, I remember being on site and something wouldn't quite match up on the drawings, and because I didn't know the whole story behind it, you'd quite often move a wall a little bit or move a window a little bit, not knowing the consequences of doing that. So I definitely think design should be incorporated into like a carpentry apprenticeship and getting your builder's license. So like it does amaze me that you've had the courage to go and do your mature age apprenticeship, like, because at 30 it's a big step, like, especially if you've got young family and you've just like not long moved to the Gold Coast, like, so like what advice would you give for, I guess, older people out there that might be sitting on the fence? They've got it in their mind that they possibly want to do some sort of trade. Like, what's your advice to those guys?
It's probably a bit cliche, but just give it a crack, really.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Put yourself out there.
Yeah.
You just never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that old cliche. You just never know until you give it a go.
So
Really.
obviously you've made the right decision. Like, you're very passionate about it. Like, I love the stuff you do on your Instagram. You do your little videos and show your work, and like, I love it. I think that just shows that you're proud of what you do.
Yeah.
And I believe that, like, I know from the stuff we do on social media, it attracts clients that want to work with us.
Yeah.
And so, like, what's the business? What's the business you're working for? Like,
SDS Custom Homes.
Yeah.
Down at the Gold Coast.
And so they, like, do they have a specialty like renovation to new homes, or they just? Like,
We got a bit of everything. Like I said before, renovations, new homes.
Yeah.
We're slowly trying to step into that high-end market.
Yeah.
For big clients and that sort of thing.
So you were mentioning before, like, you guys are more like mates, or you are mates.
Yeah.
So, like, do you think that's making the decision you made easier? The fact that you get on so well and you have a few beers every now and then.
Yeah, it's sort of sometimes can be hard, like, but if you're just honest, have those early conversations. Like, I know very early on we've had a few hard conversations. You know, you've been mates and you don't want to hurt each other's feelings, but...
So give us an example. What's the conversation?
Early on, I remember it was only in the first few weeks working for these guys, so I was sort of still on trial as you speak, and I had to take a few days off for being sick, and then my daughter was sick, and it looked pretty bad on my end. And within the first 3 weeks, I've had probably 5 days off, and then I rocked up. I had the builder's trailer and got the times wrong, and I rocked up late, half an hour late for the boys with all the tools, and sort of boiled over a little bit. But we just had an honest conversation. Like, at the time, it was probably pretty heated, but you know, afterwards, a week later, we had a pretty honest conversation. Had a couple of them.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's probably the best thing that's ever happened.
You haven't had a day off since.
Nah, too scared to bring up. But yeah, no, it's definitely probably the best thing that's ever happened to us. You know, we're honest all the time.
Yeah.
It's made us probably closer as mates even. You know, we're happy if one of us are having a shit day at home or something's going on at work with clients or whatever, you know, we don't mind talking to each other and debriefing, and
I'm glad you brought that up.
Off your chest.
I'm very passionate about that now, and it's hard. Again, like, our industry is dominated by males, and as males, we generally don't like opening up and being vulnerable and talking about things. And I know that was a big part of why you reached out to come and have a chat here. Like, put yourself out there, and if you can help one person out, like, you've made a difference. But like, for builders and tradies and or anybody that's watching this, or listening to this, it is really important that you make people feel comfortable in it at work. Like, you got to feel like if you want to open up or ask a question or I guess, like, one thing I'm very conscious of whenever I get to my sites is I'll always ask everyone how they're going, and when I leave, I'll always say, "See you later, have a good day." Like, and I try to have a bit more conversation wherever I can, but you've got to make that comfortable environment, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's one thing we make a little bit of a conscious effort as well. Like, we've all got families at home, and you're at work, you know, 40, 50 hours of the week. You know, you sometimes you're seeing your mates at work more than you see your family. So, you know, if you can make it as enjoyable and as fun as possible, obviously getting your work done, then it makes work life a lot easier. Yeah.
So for young, anybody, and I imagine doing a mature age apprenticeship there is situations that are easier and there are situations that are harder. Like obviously being a bit older, you would be have a few more life skills and things, and whereas there's like the younger guys out there are probably a bit afraid or hesitant to put their hand up and ask questions. Like I really encourage my guys to, like, no question's a silly question. Like, I can't help you improve, step up, whatever it may be, if you're not telling me how you're feeling or a problem that you may be having. Like, it's pretty important to keep that open communication with your team.
Yeah, definitely, because like I said, we've got to make that work-life balance, and while you're at work, like we said, you're at work for a long time of the week.
Yeah.
You got to just make that enjoyable and be vulnerable, like you're saying. And also on the flip side of that, the quicker us apprentices are learning, the better we are for the team, really.
Yeah.
So, like I said, learn as much as you can, ask questions, sit down at Smoko, ask for their plans, look for their plans,
Mate,
learn.
I'll employ you. My guys do that. Like they, and I think it's really important. But yeah, the fact that you mentioned that, and I think for a lot of young guys out there doing an apprenticeship, or girls, like just taking that initiative to say, hey, that job we're starting next month or whatever, like, could you shoot me the plans? I'll get my head around it, have a bit of a squiz. Like, to a boss, like if someone says that to me, I'm like, that's unreal. Like, the fact that you've asked that, you're going to put in some time, your own time behind the scenes, get your head around the job, that just goes such a long way in showing, or any employer, how committed you are. But so, like, you've obviously been very committed with, like, doing how are you doing your apprenticeship? You're doing it correspondence? Or?
So I do all my theory online.
Yeah.
Through Foundation Training Australia.
Yep. So that's all after hours.
Yeah, all in my own time. I've had a few. My mate, my boss, he's given me the odd day here and there to catch up and do some theory. And
so you don't go to TAFE at all?
Nah.
Yep.
No. So yeah, it's all at home on the laptop. Plenty of photos and plenty of notes and yeah.
So, like, how do you have someone that you can call up and ask advice or help? Like, you got a trainer that you get in touch with?
Yeah, so I've got a trainer that I talk to a fair bit.
Yeah.
And we shoot messages off. I pretty much take photos or videos of everything I do.
Yeah.
And shoot that off to him and go, oh, this is what I've done for the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
Where do we tick it off on what subjects I've done?
So is that well, that's really different from back in the day how I did mine. Like, is that like, do you have the opportunity to speed that up? Like, can you finish your apprenticeship quicker?
Yeah, so that's one reason I went that way, because pretty much my apprenticeship's based on time on theory, providing my boss and my trainer know that I'm competent in doing those subjects. Providing I do that theory, it gets ticked off.
Did they take any of that experience you had from working at the cabinet makers and all that on board? Or?
Yeah. So very early on, you sit down and have a bit of an interview, a bit of a chat, go through what you've previously done. And you get that recognition of prior learning, they call it. And get a few subjects ticked off.
Yeah, awesome. So, mate, it must be pretty exciting, like, knowing you've only got a month or two to go, and then you're a tradie.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's one of those things I've had in the back of my mind since I can remember. I was 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
It's a couple of quiet beers once I get it ticked off, that's for sure.
Down the footy club.
Yeah.
So, I take my hat off to you. I think anyone that gets a bit more further on in life, 30 or 40, and has the courage, because that's what it is, like, financially, family, like, to take a few steps backwards and do a mature age apprenticeship is, I definitely take my hat off to you. But, mate, in this current market we're in, like, you probably could have timed it more perfectly. Like, you had those hard times getting into it, and now you've come through COVID, and you're definitely going to be able to hit the ground running. So, like obviously your boss has got a lot of work ahead of him and that sort of thing. But like, what's your goals? Like, what are you now that you've reached your goal of becoming a chippy? Do you have any plans for the future? Like, where do you want to go?
Yeah, it's sort of one of those things. I just thought I'll get my chippy ticket, might just float around and be a chippy for a while, but wasn't until I had a chat with my boss, and he probably had a lot more confidence in me than what I did, to be honest. Because even early stages, well, first off, he said, we're glad that I'm working with him because he'll put me through a building apprenticeship compared to a carpentry apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So that's back to that openness. So we have those chats
Yeah.
about what's going on and how to, to a certain extent, run a building business. But yeah, and he said, whatever, if I wanted to go down that route, he was more than happy to help me out. So it actually got me thinking, maybe one day, hopefully I could start doing my own stuff.
So do you, like through your apprenticeship, have you been shown or taught or had an interest in the behind the scenes? Like and this is something that's only really come to light with me in the last few years with everything else I'm doing in the industry. But when you become a builder, you really just think you're still one of the tradies, but instead of just being the tradie, you're pulling everything together. And it does take a lot of builders, and I think it's why a lot of builders do get into trouble, because you don't actually understand all the hats you have to wear and how much actual work is behind the scenes. And like we've done a lot of things in our business. Like we've done mind mapping to create processes and systems and things. We spend a huge amount of money and time on it. It's something in our Live Like Build, in my Live Like Build business, that Amelia and I are really focused on. And after doing all that, it actually has come out that like to be a good builder and run a good professional profitable business, the actual building part on site is only about 20% of the business.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Behind the scenes, the administration, the contracts, the accounting, the inquiry, the design, the just getting at marketing, getting jobs in the door, like there's 80% of the business behind the scenes that no one sees, that chews up a lot of the money. And again, I think all that stuff should be taught through an apprenticeship or through your builder's course.
Yeah.
So is that have you learned any of that, or is it stuff that you've always wondered, like what goes on behind the scenes? How do I learn more about that?
Yeah, probably not actually learn. More just chats with my boss.
Yeah.
He'll be like, we've had this inquiry, and 3 months later, it's like, remember that inquiry we was talking about? We're actually talking, plans have come through. We might start quoting it.
Yeah.
And then another 6 months down the track, I'll ask the question, what's going on with that job that we talked about 6 months ago?
Yeah.
Oh, no, we're still quoting it. We're just...
Yeah.
So, it's probably not until last year or so I didn't realise, like you said, how much goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Since I've had those chats with my boss, like how much and time and effort goes in behind the scenes.
To keep the wheels rolling.
Yeah, exactly. And client... talking with clients and whatnot. There's a lot that goes on.
Mate, I see through your Instagram you're a Makita man.
Yeah.
I love my Milwaukee. When I was back on the tools, I had shitloads of Makita, and then, I don't know what's happened. I've ended up with all Milwaukee, but you come across as a I love some of the stuff you do, but you love the tools, don't you? Like
my partner doesn't. But I absolutely love my tools. It's probably another little bit of advice I'd give to any apprentice, whether you're young or mature age. Invest in yourself, because your tools is what make your money.
Yeah.
Whether you are a sparky or a carpenter or whatnot.
Yeah.
Look after them. If you pay, that's a lot of money in investment into yourself.
Buy the good tools, do the job properly. Buy shit that lasts, doesn't give you grief.
Yeah.
But you must be sponsored by Makita or something, aren't you? Like,
I wish.
I think that's great advice. I know back in the day, that was definitely something that I struggled with, was keeping my tools up as I grew through my apprenticeship. Because and it's another thing that it does frustrate me a little bit. Like carpenters compared to other trades, like it wouldn't be uncommon for a carpenter to have 60, 80, even maybe 100 grand sitting in a $20,000 trailer.
Yeah.
And yeah, you got to look after that shit. You got to, don't want to get it stolen and all those types of things. But how do you, like, you've obviously had prior experience in being able to use the tools.
Yeah.
Like, has there been situations on site where you haven't sort of known what you're meant to do or how to use a tool, and you might have, like, you've been afraid to speak up or ask questions, or?
There's definitely been times where I can't picture off the top of my head, but yeah, I definitely know there's times, even in the last 12 months that I've been told to do something and I sort of don't wrap my head around it. But yeah, it just comes back to that communication.
Yeah.
Just have that chat. If you get given a task,
there's something. Look, I'll be honest. I've put some apprentices over the years, probably through hell, they would say, but and again, it does come back. Like, I don't know. I've definitely calmed down in my older age, but I think, like, I definitely got to a point where, like, I've just done it so much, and it was like it was just in my head, and I knew how to do it. And like, you get an apprentice, you're working with them, and you say, hey, I need that done. Like, go and do that, and like, you don't even think that. Shit, I should have probably, like, spent 20 minutes with them and shown them what to do and how to do it, and like why we do it that way. Like, is that, like, from your experience coming through an apprenticeship, what's your advice for those sorts of situations?
Yeah, I think it's that purpose, and like you said, it's that why. Like, everything, no matter what you're doing, there's a reason why it's getting done a certain way. And that's probably one thing. If you're stuck on something or you're doing something, probably ask the question, like, oh, why do we got to put this beam in this area, or why are we putting this wall over here, and
why are we cutting this timber and using this timber? And
so
and look, like I said, like the apprentices we've had over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, we've definitely put a lot more time into. But I even see it with some of my trades, but we're just so focused on keeping the job moving, and you do quite often look back and think, shit, I actually probably should have taken more time and explained that a bit better. And like, we've learnt now in our building business that, like, our systems and processes is a big part of that, getting things out of my head and onto paper so that people actually have a step-by-step process to follow. But there's so much involved in being an apprenticeship or being any trade. And like, do you feel, like, what do you, like, we touched on it before, but like, what do you feel now that you're at the end of your time? Like, do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel proud? Like, is there things that you look back and think, or is there things that you look at and go, shit, like, I still don't quite know how to do that, or I need to know more about that? Like,
there's definitely still things to learn. So yeah, definitely, I'm excited for one. But I'm just keen to learn more. And get better.
Do you think you've been, over the time, do you think you've learned more when you get thrown in the deep end?
Yeah, definitely. I've plenty of times, it's like I was saying before, my bosses have more confidence in me than I do in me sometimes. But they've always said, we won't give you a task we don't feel comfortable that you can't do. And sometimes they say, oh, can you do a certain thing? And I'll crap myself sometimes, but end up coming out, the other side and done it and gone, oh, I actually can do that. So definitely.
Awesome.
Been some scary times.
Well, mate, look, really appreciate everything we've discussed today. It's been fantastic. So just to wrap it up quickly, what do you do yourself? Like, what do you do to get away from it? If you're doing your 40, 50 hours a week, is your chill out family, obviously, is it football?
My two kids run me ragged on my spare time. But yeah, like I said, I was sort of semi-retired from playing local footy at the moment, and and yeah, just taking on a little coaching role back at Labrador. To help out with a bit of development for some kids and have a bit of fun. My son's just getting into his footy as well. So
Yeah, awesome.
between him training, once training starts for him, that's pretty much most of the weeknights done and weekends.
Busy boy, mate.
Yeah.
Kids, young kids always keep you busy. So, look, we'll wrap it up now. Appreciate you coming on here. Take my hat off to you if you're doing a mature age apprenticeship. And just final words for anyone that is out there just hesitant, they think in their mind they want to do a apprenticeship. They might be late 20s, 30s, 40, whatever. Look, let's wrap it up. What do you tell them? What do they got to do? Get off their ass and just do it, or jump in the deep end, or
you just never know how much confidence you can have in yourself. Just put yourself out there, ask the questions, ask around. Depend on what trade you're in or want to do. Ask around. You just never know who you might get in contact with, really.
And just give it a crack.
Yeah.
Awesome, mate. Appreciate your time. And look, for everyone that's watching, listening, if you want to see Chris's Makita tools, jump on Instagram, check him out. Chrissy T, T-E-E, the Chippy. Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Duayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.